The empty throne, the crystalline spires of the Galactic Assembly Hall, reflected the light of 3 artificial suns as commander. Krex of the Zelathi Empire raised his ceremonial glass. 10 years had passed since humanity disappeared without warning, without explanation, without even a goodbye. The massive amphitheater buzzed with celebration from representatives of 47 species. All gathered to commemorate what they called the Great Stabilization. Krex's forearms moved gracefully as he addressed the crowd. His species had waited centuries for this moment. The Zelathi were ancient, having achieved spaceflight when Earth's humans were still discovering fire. They had watched with growing concern as humanity exploded onto the galactic scene just 300 years ago, spreading like wildfire across the stars. Now, with humans gone, proper order had returned. The humans were an anomaly that corrected itself. Krex announced, his voice carrying across the vast chamber through quantum resonators. They expanded too quickly, claimed too much, understood too little. Their disappearance proves what we have always known. True civilization requires patience, wisdom, and acceptance of one's place in the cosmic hierarchy. Ambassador Threll of the Morvac Collective stood next, her serpentine form undulating with satisfaction. The humans never understood diplomacy. They refused our guidance, rejected our treaties, insisted on their own path. Look where their stubbornness led them. Extinction, complete and total erasure from existence. We searched every one of their worlds. Empty cities, abandoned ships, silent space stations. Not even bodies remained. They must have destroyed themselves with one of their reckless experiments. The assembly erupted in agreement. Species after species rose to share stories of human arrogance. The Deltrons spoke of how humans refused to limit their colony ships. The Yorth complained about human traders who ignored established shipping routes. The ancient Prelians reminded everyone how humans had dared to settle worlds without first seeking permission from the Council in the center of the assembly. A holographic display showed the former human territories. Once, these regions had blazed with activity. Human ships had crisscrossed space in seemingly random patterns. Their colonies had sprouted on worlds other species deemed too hostile, too remote, or too worthless. Now, these areas showed nothing but darkness and silence. Minister Vex of the Quellian Republic floated forward in her environmental suit. Our science teams have spent a decade studying human technology left behind. We expected to find advanced weapons, revolutionary discoveries, something to explain their rapid expansion. Instead, we found primitive fusion reactors, basic quantum, computers, and laughably simple genetic tools. They were centuries behind us in every field that matters. More laughter filled the chamber. The idea that humanity had once worried them seemed absurd now. How could they have feared a species that couldn't even develop proper antimatter engines? How could they have been concerned about beings who still used chemical rockets for planetary launches? Yet something bothered Senior Analyst Horan of the Etherian Mind Collective. His gaseous form swirled with colors that indicated deep thought. He had spent the last 10 years studying humanity's disappearance, and nothing added up correctly. The humans had vanished simultaneously across 300 worlds. Every human, everywhere, gone in the same instant. No weapon known to Galactic science could achieve that. No plague could spread that fast. No disaster could be that precise. Horin had also discovered something else. In the weeks before their disappearance, human communication traffic had increased 10,000-fold. Encrypted, messages flew between colonies at unprecedented rates. Their military vessels had conducted strange maneuvers in deep space. Their scientists had gathered at remote research stations. Then, silence. The celebration continued as species after species claimed former human worlds. The Zelaphi took Earth itself, planning to turn humanity's birth world into a museum of failed ambition. The Morvac claimed Mars and the Sol System's asteroid belts. Other species divided up the human colonies, based on resources and strategic value. Commander Krex announced the final redistribution of human assets with satisfaction. Their infrastructure would serve civilized species now. Their cities would house proper colonists who understood their place. Their technology, primitive as it was, would be studied and catalogued as a warning to future upstart species. As the assembly celebrated, few noticed the small drone that entered the Sol System. It was one of thousands the Council had deployed to monitor former human space. This particular drone had detected an energy signature near Jupiter's moon Europa. The signature was faint, almost undetectable, but it matched no known phenomenon. The drone descended through Europa's thin atmosphere and dove beneath its icy surface into the dark ocean below. What it found there defied explanation. A massive structure, clearly artificial, pulsed with unknown energy. The architecture was human in design, but impossibly advanced. Symbols covered its surface, equations that hurt to process. Mathematics that suggested understanding of physics beyond anything the Council knew before the drone could transmit. Its findings, the structure activated. A pulse of energy destroyed the drone instantly, but not before it managed to send a single image back to the Council's monitoring station. The image showed 3 words etched in human script on the structure's surface. Project Exodus active. Back at the assembly, the celebration continued unaware. Admiral Zess of the Kraken depths spoke of claiming human ocean worlds. General Torv of the warrior caste described taking human military bases. Each speaker added to the narrative that humanity had been weak, foolish, and ultimately self-destructive. Counselor Prima of the Ancient Ones, a species that had achieved spaceflight before most others had developed language, sat silently in her crystalline throne. She alone, among the assembly, had argued against celebrating humanity's disappearance. Something about it felt wrong to her. The humans had been chaotic, yes, but they had also been surprisingly adaptive. They had solved problems in ways no other species considered. They had survived on worlds that should have killed them. Prima remembered the last human she had spoken with, Ambassador Chenwei, just days before the disappearance. Chen had seemed calm, almost serene, despite the increasing pressure from the Council to limit human expansion. When Prima had warned that the Council might take military action against humanity, Chen had smiled and said something strange. "We appreciate your concern, Counselor, but humanity has been preparing for something far greater than the Council imagines. When we return, I hope you will remember this conversation." Return, Chen had said, return, not if, but when. Prima had dismissed it as human bravado at the time. Now, she wondered. The celebration reached its peak as Krex unveiled a monument to the Great Stabilization. The twisted metal sculpture had been made from salvaged human ships, shaped into a spiral that represented the Council's eternal wisdom crushing humanity's chaotic ambition. The crowd cheered as the monument was transported to Earth's moon, where it would stand as an eternal reminder of what happened to species that refused to accept their place. As night fell on the Galactic Assembly, the various species departed for their quarters, satisfied that the galaxy was finally as it should be, ordered, peaceful, predictable, The humans were gone, and they were never coming back. But in the darkness between stars, in dimensions the Council couldn't perceive, in spaces that existed outside normal physics, something stirred. Humanity hadn't died. They hadn't fled. They had evolved. And they were almost ready to show the galaxy what 10 years of silence had brought them. Asterisk. The Council had mocked humanity's disappearance, celebrated their assumed destruction, and divided their abandoned worlds like vultures over carrion. They had no idea that every empty human city contained hidden sensors. Every abandoned human ship held quantum recorders. Every silent human station was a listening post. Humanity had been watching, learning, preparing. The Great Stabilization was about to become the Great Awakening, and the Council would learn why humans had really disappeared. They would discover that silence wasn't surrender. For humanity, silence was preparation, the return of the Silent Ones. 3 months after the celebration, everything changed. It started with impossible readings from deep space scanners, energy signatures that shouldn't exist, gravitational waves that defied physics, quantum fluctuations that suggested something massive was happening in the void, between galaxies. Admiral Krex stood on the bridge of the Zelethi flagship, studying the data with growing unease. His forearms trembled as he processed what the sensors were showing. Massive objects were emerging from nowhere, not from hyperspace or warp tunnels, but from space itself, as if reality was giving birth to them. 47 confirmed signatures and rising, his science officer reported. The objects appear to be ships, but their energy output exceeds anything in our databases. They're not using any propulsion system we recognize. It's as if space itself is moving them. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every major species gathered, their earlier celebration replaced by fear and confusion. The mysterious objects were approaching from all directions, surrounding Council space in a perfect sphere. Whatever they were, they had the galaxies surrounded. High Councilor Threll tried to maintain calm. These could be visitors from another galaxy, perhaps a species we've never encountered. We should attempt communication before assuming hostile intent. The communication attempt came sooner than expected, but not from the Council. Every screen, every display, every holographic projector in Council space activated simultaneously. The image that appeared made the assembly gasp in collective shock. A human face looked back at them. Not just any human, but Admiral Sarah Chen, who had supposedly vanished with the rest of humanity 10 years ago. She looked different though. Her eyes held depths that seemed to stretch into infinity. Her skin had a subtle luminescence. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated in dimensions the Council couldn't fully perceive. Greetings, Galactic Council. Humanity has returned. We apologize for our extended absence, but it was necessary. You see, 10 years ago, we faced a choice. We could continue our expansion and eventually clash with the Council, likely resulting in war and countless deaths. Or we could take a different path. We chose evolution. The assembly erupted in chaos. Species shouted in dozens of languages. Some called it a trick, others a recording. Still others insisted humans couldn't have survived. Krex slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, demanding silence. Impossible. We searched every human world, every colony, every outpost. You were gone, extinct. Your cities were empty, your ships abandoned. Where were you hiding? Chen smiled, and the expression held knowledge that made even ancient species uncomfortable. We weren't hiding, Commander. We were ascending. You searched for us in three-dimensional space, but humanity had moved beyond such limitations. We spent 10 years in a dimension where time flows differently, where thought becomes reality, where the barriers between mind and matter dissolve. The holographic display changed, showing images that defied comprehension. Human cities existing in impossible geometries. Ships that were both massive and microscopic simultaneously. Technology that appeared to be alive, organic and mechanical at once. Humans working alongside beings of pure energy, their bodies shifting. Between solid and quantum states at will, we discovered something during our early expansion, Chen continued. The universe isn't just matter and energy, it's consciousness itself. Every star, every planet, every atom is part of a vast living system. You've spent millennia trying to conquer space. We learned to commune with it. Minister Vex's suit flashed with agitation, lies and deception. Humans were primitive. Your technology was centuries behind ours. You couldn't even develop proper antimatter reactors. Chen laughed, and the sound rippled. Through dimensions, you're right. Our technology was primitive because we were looking at the universe wrong. We were trying to force our will upon reality instead of working with it. When we disappeared, every human connected to what we call the consciousness field. Imagine every human mind linked not just to each other, but to the fundamental fabric of space-time itself. The display showed more impossible images. Humans walking through walls by adjusting their quantum signatures. Ships that traveled not by moving through space, but by convincing space they were already at their destination. Weapons that didn't destroy but transformed matter into pure information, preserving it while neutralizing threats. Senior Analyst Horan's gaseous form swirled with sudden understanding. The energy signatures we detected, the structures on Europa. You were building anchor points, weren't you? Places where your new dimension could interface with normal space. Chen nodded approvingly. The Etherian Mind Collective always was perceptive. Yes, we left behind quantum anchors on every human world. They allowed us to monitor normal space while we evolved. We watched as you divided our worlds, mocked our disappearance, and celebrated what you thought was our extinction. We learned much about the true nature of the Council. The massive objects surrounding Council space began to shift, their true nature revealing itself. They weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were bubbles of altered space-time, each one containing millions of evolved humans existing in a state between energy and matter. The entire human race had returned, but they had returned as something beyond the Council's understanding. Councillor Prima of the Ancient Ones rose slowly. You said you chose evolution to avoid war. What do you want now? Why return? To offer a choice, Chen replied. The same choice we made 10 years ago. The universe is evolving, whether you recognize it or not. The consciousness field we discovered isn't unique to humans. Every sentient being can access it. We're here to teach, not to conquer. We're here to uplift, not to destroy. Asterisk, the display changed again, showing visions of a possible future. Species working together, not through forced treaties, but through genuine understanding. Technology that healed rather than harmed. Exploration of not just physical space, but dimensions of consciousness the Council had never imagined. Conflicts, resolved not through force, but through empathic connection. But we also remember how you treated us. Chen continued, her tone growing serious. How you tried to limit us, control us, force us into your rigid hierarchy. that ends now. The worlds you took will be returned to us, not because we'll force you, but because our presence alone will make them inhospitable to those who haven't evolved. The physics there will be different, the very laws of reality adjusted to our new nature. Commander Krex stepped forward, his forearms spread in a gesture of defiance. You threaten us. You speak of peace while surrounding us with weapons we don't understand. Chen shook her head. Not weapons, Commander, teachers. Each of those constructs contains millions of human consciousnesses eager to share what we've learned. But the choice is yours. You can embrace evolution and join us in transcending the limitations of conventional existence. Or you can remain as you are, confined to your small section of three-dimensional space, while the rest of the universe expands. Beyond your comprehension, the assembly fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't been destroyed. They had transformed into something that made the Council's technology look like stone tools. They offered enlightenment, but also carried the implicit threat that refusing would leave the Council species trapped in an increasingly irrelevant corner of existence. High Counselor Threll found her voice first. And if we refuse your offer, if we choose to remain as we are, then you'll be left alone, Chen said simply. We'll withdraw 2 dimensions you can't perceive. The universe will continue evolving around you while you stagnate in your self-imposed limitations. You'll become living fossils, remnants of a time when species thought conquest and control were the highest achievements of civilization. The human ships, if they could still be called that, began to pulse with harmonious energy. Each pulse sent waves through space-time that the Council's instruments couldn't properly measure. Reality itself seemed to respond, space becoming more fluid, more alive around the human constructs. Admiral Zess of the Kraken Depths asked the question many were thinking, why should we believe you won't simply conquer us with your superior abilities? Chun's expression softened. Because conquest is a concept that becomes meaningless when you understand consciousness, when you can feel every thought, every emotion, every spark of awareness in the universe. The idea of forcing your will on others becomes abhorrent. We could transform you all instantly, make you like us without your consent. But that would violate the fundamental principle we discovered. True evolution must be chosen, not imposed. The display showed one final image. Earth, humanity's birth world, but transformed. The planet glowed with bioluminescent cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Forests that were both physical and digital. Oceans that contained not just water but liquid consciousness. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. We give you 1 year, Chen announced. 1 year to decide. Those who wish to evolve will be welcomed and guided through the transformation. Those who refuse will be respected but isolated. The universe is moving forward with or without you. The question is whether you'll be part of that future or relics of the past. The transmission ended, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. The celebration of humanity's extinction had become the moment of humanity's triumph. They hadn't conquered through force or subjugated through power. They had simply evolved beyond the need for such primitive concepts. As the council members returned to their worlds to deliberate, many began to wonder if humanity's disappearance hadn't been a retreat but a metamorphosis. The cocoon had been silence, the butterfly was transcendence, and the galaxy would never be the same. The mocking had stopped, the silence had ended, and humanity's true power, the power to transform not through force but through consciousness itself, had been revealed. The Council had spent 10 years dividing humanity's abandoned worlds. Now they faced a choice that would determine whether they had any worlds at all in the universe humanity was creating. The great stabilization was over. The age of consciousness had begun.